Have you ever had that strange feeling where on paper, everything in your life is fine, but inside, you just feel hollow? It's not sadness or depression. It's not anxiety you can name. It's just empty. A quiet, unsettling sense that you're not where you're supposed to be, even though you can't explain where there actually is. This is the paradox that traps so many of us. My life is fine, so why do I feel so lost? And here is the first uncomfortable truth. The more fine your life looks on the outside, the more dangerous this feeling becomes. Because when nothing is obviously broken, you start to assume you are the problem. You tell yourself, there's no reason to feel this way, or I should just be grateful. So instead of listening to the signal, you silence it. And that's where the real problem begins. The invisible crisis most of us aren't prepared for isn't chaos. It's order without meaning. Your schedule is full. Your calendar is managed. Your responsibilities are clear. But your inner life feels strangely distant, like you're watching yourself live rather than actually living. The psychologist Carl Jung warned about this long before social media or modern productivity culture. He said there would come a time when people would confuse adapting to life with being whole. They would function perfectly, while slowly losing contact with their soul. And when that happens, the psyche doesn't scream. It whispers. It creates a subtle sense of disorientation, a quiet loss of direction. You don't feel despair. You feel nothing sharp enough to justify making a change. That's why this state is so dangerous. Pain motivates action, but numbness creates stagnation. This question, if everything is fine, why do I feel like this? It haunts people in the quiet moments, late at night, in the shower. You scroll, you distract, you plan your next task, not because you want to, but because stillness makes the feeling louder. Here is what most people get wrong. They assume feeling lost means they re-failing at life. In reality, feeling lost often means your inner world is no longer aligned with the life you are living. And this misalignment didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, quietly, responsibly. You didn't make bad choices. You made acceptable ones, logical ones, socially approved ones. And over time, those choices built a life that works, but it doesn't speak to you anymore. Jung described the psyche as a system that demands balance. When you consciously live one way while unconsciously longing for another, tension builds. But modern culture trains us to ignore that tension. We're taught to ask, what makes sense? What's realistic? What will people think? We're not taught to ask, what feels alive? What feels true? What part of me is being silenced right now? So you adapt. You become functional, reliable, predictable. And slowly, your unconscious begins to withdraw. This is where the feeling of being lost actually comes from. Not from confusion, but from disconnection. You are no longer in dialogue with the deeper parts of yourself. Stability feels safe, but psychologically, it can be suffocating if it lacks meaning. The unconscious mind doesn't care about comfort. It cares about purpose, movement, and truth. When your life becomes too narrow, too optimized, too efficient, too safe, parts of your psyche are left unused. Those parts don't disappear, they become shadows. And shadows create restlessness, emptiness, a subtle sense of this isn't it. One of the most dangerous illusions in modern life is the idea of progress without inner transformation. You earn more, you improve your habits, you become more disciplined, but none of it addresses who you are becoming. Jung warned that when people grow outwardly but stagnate inwardly, the psyche reacts with withdrawal. Motivation fades, joy becomes mechanical. Life turns gray. This isn't just burnout. It's what happens when the soul realizes it's no longer being consulted. Many people mistake this emotional numbness for maturity. I'm calm. I don't get affected. I don't feel much anymore. But numbness is not peace. It's anesthesia. Peace is alive. Numbness is quiet and deadened. And when you live in numbness long enough, you lose your internal compass. You stop knowing what you want, what excites you, or what feels meaningful. So you just do what's expected. And the more you do that, the more lost you feel. You can't logic your way out of a psychological disconnection. The part of you that feels lost doesn't speak the language of logic. It speaks in sensations, dreams, moods, restlessness. The conscious mind wants answers. The unconscious wants recognition. That emptiness is not your enemy. It's a message. It's the psyche's way of saying, the life you are living is no longer aligned with the person you are becoming. This doesn't mean your life is wrong. It means it's incomplete. And feeling lost is often the first sign that your psyche is ready to wake up. Carl Jung described the human psyche as honest. And honesty, when ignored, becomes ruthless. When people say, I feel lost even though my life is fine, Jung wouldn't ask about their habits or their mindset. He would ask a far more dangerous question. Which part of you did you abandon in order to survive? Because a loss of direction doesn't come from confusion. It comes from self-betrayal, repeated quietly over time. Jung introduced the concept of the persona, the social mask we wear to function in the world. The good employee, the responsible one, the strong one, the version of you that fits in. The persona is necessary, but it becomes lethal when it becomes your entire identity. Modern life rewards the persona obsessively. Be efficient, be polite, be productive, be acceptable. And slowly, you start living for performance instead of truth. You don't ask, is this who I am? You ask, does this work? And it does. Until it doesn't. When the persona dominates, your inner vitality fades. Your curiosity dies. Your emotional depth flattens. You stop feeling strong emotions, both joy and pain. This isn't emotional intelligence. It's emotional suppression masquerading as maturity. You feel functional, but internally uninhabited. You are present everywhere except inside yourself. Wild see the parts of you that don't fit the persona: your anger, your ambition, your creativity, your need for meaning. They don't vanish. They go underground. Jung called this the shadow. And the shadow is not bad. It is unlived life. Every time you say, that's unrealistic, or that's not who I am, a part of you is exiled. And exiled parts do not forgive quietly. Emotional numbness is the shadow's first signal. You don't feel dramatic suffering. You feel meaningless stability. That off feeling is the shadow saying, you left me behind. Modern life makes this worse. You live in a dopamine-saturated world of scrolling, notifications, and instant rewards. Dopamine gives movement, but it does not give meaning. You can feel busy without feeling alive, stimulated without feeling fulfilled. Jung warned that when meaning is replaced by stimulation, the psyche collapses inward, creating an emptiness. You don't cry. You don't celebrate. You just drift. People are often told, just be grateful. But gratitude without truth becomes repression. You can be grateful and still be misaligned. You can be lucky and still be lost. The psyche doesn't negotiate with moral pressure. It responds only to integration. Your psyche doesn't want peace. It wants completion. Completion includes your light and your darkness, your discipline and your chaos. When half of you lives and half is silenced, the psyche reacts with emptiness and restlessness. This is why high-functioning people often suffer silently. They did everything right, but they sacrificed depth for safety. And now, nothing is wrong, except everything feels wrong. Jung believed this was the moment of psychological crossroads. You can numb yourself further, or you can descend inward. The unconscious is asking, who have I become to survive? And more importantly, what did I have to kill inside myself to get here? This is not comfortable work, but it is honest. And honesty is the only thing that restores meaning. There is a moment when the feeling of being lost stops being background noise. It sharpens, it becomes impossible to ignore. Not because something external collapses, but because avoidance finally fails. It often arrives quietly on an ordinary day, and suddenly you feel it. This life doesn't feel like mine anymore. This is when the lost feeling peaks. Not as panic, but as a cold realization. I can keep living like this, but something essential in me will never return. At this point, distractions stop working. Work, goals, entertainment, they all feel hollow. You scroll, but feel nothing. You achieve, but feel nothing. This isn't depression. This is the psyche withdrawing energy from a life that no longer reflects truth. As Jung said, when the soul is ignored, it speaks through meaninglessness. Your old story, the one where you told yourself, "I'm doing well, I should be satisfied," it stops convincing you. You realize something terrifying. You didn't choose this life consciously. You adapted into it, and adaptation is not the same as alignment. This awareness doesn't heal you immediately. First, it destroys the illusion, and that destruction hurts. This phase can feel darker than depression. Depression feels heavy. This feels empty. It's disorientation, not despair. The old map no longer works, but a new one hasn't appeared yet. The most dangerous temptation here is to go back to sleep, to numb again, to double down on routine. But once awareness cracks the psyche, you can't go back without a cost. The emptiness will only grow sharper. But here is the truth. Feeling lost is not a malfunction. It is a signal of psychological honesty. It means your inner world is demanding realignment, not comfort, but wholeness. The healing begins with a single, brutal question. Not, what should I do with my life? But, what part of me have I been avoiding? The answer is never abstract. It's a specific desire you suppressed, a truth you ignored, a version of yourself you buried. Confronting this is what restores energy, because energy follows truth. Meaning doesn't return as a lightning bolt of motivation. It arrives as a subtle internal shift. You feel slightly more real, more present, less numb. This is how healing begins. Not with happiness, but with authentic tension. You stop lying to yourself, and the psyche responds. The paradox is that the moment you feel most lost is often the moment you are closest to transformation. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer perform. Jung called this the birth of the self, not the mask, but the integrated whole. If you feel lost even when life is fine, your psyche is not broken. It is calling you inward, not to destroy your life, but to inhabit it fully. This path isn't traumatic or visible to others, but it restores something priceless, inner coherence. And once coherence returns, direction follows naturally. You are not lost because you lack purpose. You feel lost because the life you are living no longer contains all of you, and the psyche will never settle for half.